We're talking about Space Jam: A New Legacy, and is it a good movie? I'll give you my story. The only reason I saw this movie was because my daughter wanted to see it, and I don't know why, because she's not into sports, but she was there for the Looney Tunes, and and then I'm very pro theater at this moment, so I do have HBO Max at home, but instead we decided to shell out $40 and go to the theater and see Space Jam. But I'm assuming you saw it on HBO Max.
I did see it on HBO Max. That is correct. Okay.
And the only thing I know about your opinion of this movie is you did not like it, and I did like it. And I wouldn't say I would. My daughter basically said she didn't hate it and she didn't love it. So she's like middle of the road. I think I maybe liked it a little bit more than she did. So let's just get into this. Is Space Jam a good movie? You say no. Give me one reason why you hated Space Jam.
The lack of Looney Tunes characters in it. It takes some 30-odd minutes of pointless setup of LeBron James being a shitty-ass father, and I don't care, to get to the freaking stars.
Okay, so
it's a Looney Tunes movie. Where the hell are the Looney Tunes?
Okay, so they're there. It's just you're complaining about that it took 30 minutes to get there.
Yeah, it's the movie Space Jam: A New Legacy runs roughly 1 hour and 55 minutes, give or take. That's only about 20 minutes less than Black Widow. And it's doing considerably less. I don't need all this backstory. The movie opens with a prologue of a young LeBron James being told video games are bad because they distract him. And then he's an asshole dad because he's still in that mindset. And I don't care.
Yeah. I think this is this comes to one of my points of why I wouldn't say I necessarily liked it, but it's one of these points of, well, what were you expecting going in? Were you expecting high drama? Were you expecting, this for all intent and purpose is a kids movie. And, I would say it handled the family, the LeBron James story better than a Disney movie would. One of these Disney kids movies. I did appreciate the fact that LeBron James was willing to put himself out there as the villain, as the asshole dad. And, okay. So yeah, I get what you're saying. It does take a while. It does set up these tropes that you expect. It's like, the whole thing is be who you are. Okay. They drop that like right off the bat. And, it's like, we all know where this is going. And so I think maybe we're being a little bit too much of an adult when we're looking at the high quality of the story.
I see what you're saying. I disagree. A kid's movie can still be charming, can still entice me to care about the characters and what's going on. But the entire time, even excluding my, I want Looney Tunes is a Looney Tunes movie, I just thought LeBron James is being an asshole for no reason. They don't establish anything. Did he push his son into basketball, or because his son saw his dad do basketball for a few years, that's what he wanted to do, and decided that his dad doesn't make it fun. So then he got into other things. I don't know any of this.
Yeah.
So that relationship isn't really developed in a way to make it make sense.
And I get that.
The problem is, if I'm spending 30 minutes with these people, I should know something about them.
Yeah, well, one thing that struck me was, we are conflating LeBron James, the real person, versus LeBron James, this character. And I think there is this disconnect that goes on, that when you see a young LeBron James being pushed by his father into sports, and then in turn, he does the exact same thing to his kids.
The coach in the beginning was supposed to be his dad?
Okay, maybe not. It went by so fast.
I'm actually asking. I don't know.
Yeah, I know. It's like, no, maybe it wasn't his dad, as I'm thinking about it. But that coach definitely had an indelible imprint on him, in the sense that, you need to, everything else is secondary to basketball. and and that's the exact same thing he did. And I think maybe there is that conflation between LeBron James, the real person, and LeBron James, the Space Jam star or character, so to speak. And I think maybe I think if it had been just a generic parent, maybe even played by LeBron James, that maybe we would accept that a little bit better than we did.
I think I agree with you there, actually. And mind you, I don't think LeBron James did a terrible job acting wise.
No.
So
did you see the original Space Jam?
What was that?
Did you see the original Space Jam?
Yes.
What I'm told is Michael Jordan is not the greatest actor in the world.
No, he's not. He plays it too cool for school, kind of, if my memory serves right, where nothing really phases him.
Yeah, and he's a heightened version of himself.
Yeah, he's playing a version of himself, and essentially, it's Space Jam amounts to just being a giant advertisement for his return to basketball.
Yeah, and I think this one, I mean, give LeBron James credit. At least he attempted a character here.
He does. He is not the problem with how this fictionalized version of LeBron James is written. I think he's fine overall. It's not an amazing performance, but it's also Space Jam. I don't need Oscar level acting, and he acquits himself fine in that regard.
Well, let me jump off of that into I brought in one of what I liked about it. I'll give you another one. Don Cheadle is, to me, is so good in this movie that he kind of anchors this entire film in this performance. Because if you remove Cheadle and just look at the lines he says, this is your fairly average kids movie, but somehow Cheadle is able to take this below average dialogue and make it something interesting and bring some life and character to it. I mean, I really like Don Cheadle in this movie.
I don't like him as much as you. I agree he's able to do something with the rather stupid dialogue he's given, and the dumb reason he's doing everything. Really, I don't want to. The movie's fairly new, so I don't want to spoil that in case somebody hasn't seen it yet and they're watching this. But I found the rationale behind his actions in establishing this new Space Jam to be really, really, really dumb, even if we're only looking at this as the most basic of kids' movies. Like, it doesn't work at all. But he is fun, and you can tell he's having fun with the role, which is especially near the end of the movie when, again, don't want to spoil too much, when other things happen with him. And that does liven up the proceedings a little bit, more so than the direction deserves.
Yeah. Look, I'm not gonna argue with you about the plot. I mean, I watched Super Friends when I grew up. I just reviewed the 1960s Batman. So, when it comes to plots, there's not a whole lot I mean, what do you want? It's like this.
I'm going to bring up another movie here, and that movie is Curious George from like 2005 or 6 or whatever year that film came out. That is squarely a movie aimed for 3 to 8-year-olds.
Yeah,
I adore that film. That movie,
Paddington 1 and 2. I mean,
Paddington 1 and 2. Paddington's a great example. I understand the villain in Paddington 2. I understand the motivations of everybody going on, and I don't think it's stupid. I adore Paddington 2. Paddington 2 is amazing.
Yeah.
Not every movie needs to be Paddington 2 levels good, but you can make a kids movie not be this level of dumb.
Yeah. But, I mean, Paddington 2 is now the only movie on Rotten Tomatoes to have 100%. I mean, it's that good. And really? If you get someone really good and really smart behind the script, you can make a great movie. Unfortunately, I think we've been accustomed to, low quality in children's movies and children's films and very simplistic stories,
I agree entirely with that. And that's the problem here is if you take out the acting, if you take out Don Cheadle, you're left with a really subpar bad guy.
Yep.
and that's disappointing.
Yeah, agreed.
In the original Space Jam, the bad guys are these little aliens who want to kind of take over the Looney Tunes world. I haven't seen that movie in so long. Don't ask me why. I don't remember. And then another bad guy emerges when Michael Jordan comes onto the scene, and he wants to turn Michael Jordan into like a circus performer for his intergalactic circus or something.
Yeah.
Again, it's been a while, so might not have those details exactly right. But at least that's something that's more interesting than what we have here.
Yeah.
Well, as dumb as that is, I could understand why somebody would think that. Here, I don't understand why the character Don Cheadle plays, who is Al G. Rhythm, just so people know. I don't understand his rationale. He comes up with a gazillion ideas a day. Why is this one the one that gets stuck in his craw, so to speak?
Yep. Well, there you go. Yeah. Okay, so we're not far off in disagreement there. The other thing is, I think this movie tends to be, it's basically nostalgia candy. It's everything and everyone in the MGM and WB universe is in this movie, and it's like, that's again, they're doing that purely for the nostalgia factor. I'm looking in the background, and there's Jabberjaw, and there's the Herculoids, Hanna-Barbera. I mean, it's like Austin Powers. I can go on. Just they just threw the whole entire kitchen sink at this movie.
The monkeys from The Wizard of Oz, the Droogs from freaking Clockwork Orange are in it. It's weird.
So let me ask you this: when did I may have to be out of it, but is there some kind of agreement between MGM and Warner Brothers that I don't know about? I thought Amazon was buying MGM for some reason.
As far as I'm aware, Amazon is set up to buy MGM. I do not know what sort of deal they made. It could be that there's a deal for MGM movies currently on HBO Max or something, and they had the rights to those characters. But I that's speculation on my part. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, even my cursory glance on the internet is, I think there's like a distribution partnership. That doesn't necessarily imply a intellectual property co-op here,
but it makes those sort of deals easier. But I will say, I think how they utilize some of these nostalgic properties is insulting to those nostalgic properties in a way that when you got to Mad Max World, I was ready to break my TV. That was unbearable to me. Some of the others I thought were at least a little funnier, like Granny being stuck in the Matrix was kind of funny.
Yeah. And what about the Austin Powers?
Sorry?
What about Austin Powers?
I didn't care. It was okay. Sure. Why not? Like, it didn't anger me, but it didn't make me chuckle or amuse me at all. I mean, when you compare it to Who Framed Roger Rabbit, there was at least a knowledge that you were going to see these great team ups of Mickey Mouse and Bugs Bunny. And in this one, they just appear. And so you're really not expecting it. And again, it's just kind of for nostalgia's sake. Oh, I remember that. I remember this person. Because they're really bringing in a lot of obscure characters, obscure movies. You talk Clockwork Orange. There's also Casablanca. There's also, and part of it is also, kids don't know this stuff. Kids don't know that when they go into Casablanca, that, Sam at the bar being Yosemite Sam. Kids don't understand that joke. The problem with this portion of the film is it feels very self-masturbatory in that it's just like WB owns all of these properties. Let's show them all off. And it doesn't make sense. And it brings up one of the bigger issues I have with the movie. Is this a direct sequel to Space Jam or not? Because the movie can't decide. In Lola Bunny's section of this WB serververse is what they call it. Thing. She's in the Amazon with she's with the Amazon.
Yeah.
Not in the Amazon. She's with the Amazons on Themyscira, right. Training to be one of them. And when Bugs Bunny asks for her help, he says something along the lines of having to help a NBA superstar save the world. She says, "Been there, done that." Lola Bunny was created specifically for the Space Jam movie. That was her first appearance in anything Looney Tunes. The character since grew a life of her own. So that movie exists within the canon of A New Legacy. But none of the Looney Tunes remember how to play basketball? Yeah. I need internal consistency. You want to just say that was just a movie and this is what's happening now. That's fine. But internal consistency would go a long way to making me understand what's going on here, because I really don't.
Yeah. Well, having not seen the first one, that just flew by me. And I think that's the intent. Again, I'm a fan of wrestling, and if you want to talk about a genre that violates its history, wrestling is that, and it's just, there is that point where you just, I'm here in this movie theater. I just paid $40. I'm not gonna think too deeply about it. If this were Star Wars, or any other real fan stories, Doctor Who, Lord of the Rings, blah blah blah, you're gonna be concerned about that. I just don't think you can really apply this. It's like saying, all the Looney Tunes cartoons are canon and they can't violate each other. Well, they violate each other all the time, and
they do, but they're also not intentionally crossing over with one another. Each Looney Tunes short, from the very first one created to whatever the latest one is designed to be its self-contained entity. Other movies like Looney Tunes Back in Action, which is not a particularly strong film, is designed to be a self-contained entity. This one isn't, question mark. Yeah. It can't decide if it's a sequel or not. So I'm not sure if it's a sequel or not. And that makes aspects
of ruined the whole movie for you.
No, it didn't. No. Other things were
removed. What level did it ruin the movie for you? I mean, because there's a point where they're saying, well, we're not sure, but how long are you going to hold on to that throughout the film? There has to be, I guess ultimately what I'm saying is there has to be other reasons really to hate this movie other than.
Oh yeah, no, that is a minor thing. It's a point against the movie. It is not the reason to hate the movie. The thing is, they had some 20 plus years to figure out how to do this, and they couldn't even decide if this is a sequel or just a new version of.
Yeah, and to me that's the issue I have with Looney Tunes versus like Mickey and Gang. Disney. There was a time where Disney realized that they need to keep reinvigorating Mickey Mouse, Goofy, Donald, all of them, to appeal to the next generation. I don't think the WB has actually done that with Bugs Bunny. My daughter really, at her age, she really doesn't know that much about Bugs Bunny and the rest of the characters, Daffy Duck, and I don't think the WB has been, managing that intellectual property very well. I could say the same thing about the Muppets. Disney kind of brings them in and out, to the point where, do we still have that latch onto those characters that we do today than we did back then? And Bugs Bunny is I just feel like the same thing. They'll go off into Animaniacs, but they really have let Bugs go, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. No, I don't disagree with you there whatsoever, and I think that makes us even more disheartening that they couldn't, have Looney Tunes in their own story more. The Looney Tunes are just like side characters to LeBron James's story here. In the first Space Jam, which should be pointed out is not high art, is not great, and was based on a commercial. So it's not like we're ruining some fantastic legacy with this movie being bad. they are the reason everything gets started. The aliens go to them. They go get Michael Jordan. Mm-hmm. They are the impetus of everything.
They're recruiting, yeah.
You could swap out the Looney Tunes characters for, you mentioned Jabberjaw earlier, for Jabberjaw, for Josie and the Pussycats, for Captain Caveman, is that his name?
Yeah, Captain Caveman.
And you'd have roughly the same movie. So why is it?
Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, I can't really argue with you with that. What's another reason you hated this movie?
I've already mentioned this a little bit. I think it's way too long, and not just in like they do a lot of setup for LeBron and his family dynamic. I can appreciate that they want to give him this drama, but we keep cutting back to his family looking for him. And I'm confused about how his wife knows where he's at. If he's at a meeting at studios and then he's hanging around at these studios.
Again, you keep hammering this logic thing.
Like,
but logic. I need logic. I need things to make sense. I mean, come on.
Slightly. I need something to make some form of sense for me to understand anything else going on.
Yeah,
right?
No,
you don't have to be perfectly free of plot holes, but I should understand the motivation behind everybody. And in this case, it seems like she just wants to keep tabs on her man because she's controlling him. That's as much as I know of this character. So that might as well be true. Was he supposed to be home at a certain time for dinner? I don't understand. And that's a lot of those scenes are very repetitive involving her and her search and his manager, his agent. I don't know who that was. I'm trying to figure out
his brother.
His brother. Oh, okay. Thank you. I literally couldn't figure that out. They're just very repetitive. If I had 1 or 2 scenes like that beforehand, but we have like 3 or 4, and I'm like, at least take me back to the Looney Tunes. They're doing things that are vaguely interesting by, Taz is doing his little whirlwind thing. Yosemite shoots the ball, which is kind of funny, I guess.
Yeah.
There's at least like entertainment there. In these cutaways to the real world, it's boring.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So you're bringing up the area in which essentially won me over ultimately to this movie. The moment the Looney Tunes go 3D, I was bought. I was sold into this movie. Everything else, we'll talk about it in just a moment. But it was a subpar movie. But what happened on the basketball court, having everyone turn 3D, being able to bring in not only video game elements into now the game and into the story, but also the Looney Tune elements. I was bought. I loved it. This is I was laughing. I was having a great time. But yeah, I think that a lot of the superfluous stuff, the stuff that didn't involve being in this 3D world, was very subpar. And once you respond to that, and then I want to get into the 2D part of it.
I agree. Once the game starts, the movie picks up considerably. And I'm sort of engaged with it, not entirely, because by this point I'm pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, you can almost say that maybe you were beaten and battered to a point of where it lessened your ability to enjoy that part of it.
If we got to the game 15, 20 minutes earlier, I probably wouldn't have hated this movie nearly as much, to be honest, because that part's interesting. They do a lot of cool things with effects. One of the people on the Goon squad is made of water, and the way he moves is really, from an animation standpoint, really impressive. Another character on the Goon squad is a spider lady, and I love what they do with her. I think it was very clever. How they use her long arms and whatnot. That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
The Looney Tunes get a chance to show off and do their things. Wile E. Coyote brings out some contraptions that are a lot of fun to watch. And
I would say
the bulk of the movie.
Yeah, I would say that the 3D animated Looney Tunes character, they got that down perfectly. Because I've seen what Disney did to Mickey Mouse and Goofy and all those, and their 3D version, they're nowhere near as good in quality as these characters were, and again, maybe if I were to ever watch the movie again, clearly this part of the movie is where I'm drawn to, and the point where I'm gonna stop cleaning the house, sit down, and watch this part of the movie.
Makes absolute sense.
Yeah. Okay, so I do want to. So I'll talk about the 2D part, because a big portion of it is LeBron James gets thrown in the Looney Tunes world. He becomes a part of this 2D animation where this is where the hunt or the recruitment of the other Looney Tune characters occurs. The animation in this case is horrible. I was so angry at just how bad the animation is. It's like, film is what's supposed to be 30 frames a second, while animation tends to be 24. And I think they kept to that, and it just looked wrong. And, it looked like the animation was not smooth at all. And I'm not, it's the difference between the television version of Looney Tunes versus the early film version of Looney Tunes, where it was true animation at that point, as opposed to the limited television stuff we get. And once the 2D animation started happening, I was starting to be like you and kind of really shut this movie off. I'm pretty sure you agree with me.
I do. I'm confused how LeBron James turned into a tune himself. That's
logic. You keep going to logic.
Of all the logic things I bring up, that is the most minor nitpicky one, and I know this. But I do want it stated for the record, it doesn't really make sense, but that's okay. What bothers me is not only the character movements, which are kind of choppy, but it's the backgrounds that are really textureless. So it looks like these characters aren't actually standing or interacting with anything they're using. It's it feels like there's a void, and the characters are just floating about that void, and other objects are floating near them, as opposed to being like, if you look at Who Framed Roger Rabbit, Tunes interacting with Tunes, like even Bob Hoskins interacting with Roger Rabbit, he grabs him by the ears. I buy this. I don't buy it here. Does that make sense?
Yeah, to me, what frustrated me the most about it is clearly all the time and money was spent in the 3D segment. And you think they could have spent a little bit of more time in that 2D segment to where it didn't have to look this bad. The quality is so disparately off that it just I just kind of at that point threw my arms up and went, what the hell am I watching? And if it wasn't for the fact that the 3D portion was so superior, that I think it would have lost me for this entire film. Okay, and then the last thing I'll mention this as the last thing that I liked. A requirement that I have for comedies is I need to laugh. And there were moments where I just kind of burst out laughing. And I will say it's for the Looney Tune aspects of this movie. I grew up at the time where, every afternoon, the only thing they would show on television were the old Looney Tune cartoons, the rabbit season, duck season, the blatant, the flagrant use of guns and rifles and shooting people. The misogyny of Pepe Le Pew, that was me growing up, and it was just downright silliness. And what I appreciate was the fact that they brought a lot of that silliness back into this movie. There were probably 4 points where, I did laugh out loud. I think my standard's so low because comedies tend to be so bad, but to get me to laugh 4 times out loud is a pretty good score for a movie.
I don't think I ever laughed out loud. There were definitely moments much later in the film when the basketball game has begun that at least amused me. But I never really was like, oh, that's classic Looney Tunes. And I think that's the problem. Anytime there was something amusing, like the Wile E. Coyote bit, I think works pretty well. But then there's something else with another Looney Tunes character that they could have done more with, or simply ignore in favor of something else. As much as I like the animation of the Goon Squad characters, it feels like a lot of time is spent on their moves, how they play, and showing them off, because they're all very different. They all move very differently. So not as much time is focused on your crazy Looney Tune antics. I didn't have high hopes for this movie. It is a pseudo sequel to something based on a commercial, but I wanted to be entertained, and I rarely was. And for like maybe 15 to 20 minutes worth of entertainment for a movie that's almost 2 hours long.
Yeah.
That is a failing grade, in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, I'm in the same boat. I did not, I don't know what your motivation was to see the movie, but my motivation was basically my daughter wanted to see it. And as a good father, that's what I did. And she's dragged me to some real clunkers of movies. The Emoji Movie being one of them.
Oof,
and I know.
As much as I don't like Space Jam: A New Legacy, it is far better than the Emoji Movie.
Like I said, the only good movie she really dragged me to was Paddington 2. The others was just like, and so me going into this one, my standard was really low, and just kind of like, when we open with LeBron, I'm thinking, okay, well, this is fairly typical family stuff, nothing new here. And then the 2D animation just really pissed me off. But I think ultimately what won me over was the actual basketball game, and the animation on top of that, add the video game aspect of it, and then add the Looney Tune slapstick and chicanery. To me, that section just won me over, and if you don't have kids, I'm not going to tell you to go see this movie. If you have kids, they're going to love it. I think, ultimately that's where I stand on this film. And clearly you don't.
Yes. One, I don't have kids, so maybe that is part of the problem here. And two, my motivation for seeing this movie is my motivation for watching any movie ever that I haven't seen. It's a movie and I have not seen it. Before I pass on from this mortal coil, I'm going to try to watch every single film I possibly can stuff before my eyes. That is my life goal.
I know, because I need to see some of your fantasy puppet gore stuff. I need to get back on that.
I want to. It's that simple. So I wanted to watch it because I hadn't seen it. And any movie should be entertaining. And again,
you've seen it
to that point.
You've seen it.
No.
All right. Well, with that, what did you think? Did you like Space Jam: A New Legacy? Let us know. Like, subscribe, comment. With that, let's get out of here.